I've always been fascinated by animals. Ever since I was a little kid, I can remember just being absolutely in awe of animals and just wanting to learn so much more about them. I remember as a little kid, for Christmas, I asked for a book that was about animals, and this is the book that I got. I was in the second grade, and it was an animal encyclopedia. And I remember the very first page I was looking for. I wanted a page all about reptiles and especially about snakes. I was fascinated by these snakes. I wanted to know how they got around, and I thought it was so cool because they were these reptiles that didn't have arms or legs, and somehow they were able to get around. And I opened up in this book, and I found on page 88 was this chapter about these snakes, and or 82, sorry, 82, and it's just this whole chapter about snakes. And I remember reading the first line on it. It says, "It's hard to mistake a snake. It has no legs." And I just thought to myself, if a snake has no legs, how does it get around? Like, I always thought, well, it just slithers. You see it go like this. But as I read more in this chapter and as I studied a little bit more on snakes, I realized that it was actually because of friction. Now, friction is defined as the resistance that one surface or object encounters when moving over another. Now, that's the definition of friction. So how do these snakes use that friction? If you notice a snake, it has scales, like the picture that you see here. All of these scales face the same way, as you can see here. The smoother part is facing towards the snake's head, while the rougher part is facing away from the snake's head. In that way, when a snake's moving forward, it's smooth. And if it starts falling backwards, these scales flip up and create friction or resistance, causing it to not slip. Now here's another picture of a snake, just in case you don't know what a snake is. But these animals are fascinating. An animal without arms or legs, like this, can climb up a tree because of scales like this. That's something that I didn't know before, and I found that really fascinating. Now, we can use this type of science, this friction that these snakes use in our nanotechnology. Friction is a huge thing that they need to take into account in nanotechnology, and by studying these reptiles, especially snakes, they can gain a greater grasp of how to use friction and how it relates to this sort of technology. I hope that you learned a little bit more about snakes. I know that I did, and I just really thought it was fascinating that friction plays such a big role in the way that these animals survive and get around. If they didn't have this, they could be going up a mountain, and if they didn't have scales that created friction, they'd start going and then they'd just slide all the way back down to the bottom. But because of this, these snakes are able to survive and to thrive in different types of environments. So that's a little bit more about snakes and how they use friction and how it relates to nanotechnology. Thank you.